It's time for this week's episode of Brandon's Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon's Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the founder of Proflunece Sports, Andrew Petcash. How are you doing today?
Brandon, doing great. Appreciate you having me on, jumping from my own podcast to this one. So it's always fun to kind of switch seats from asking the questions to being asked the questions.
Thanks. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in your sports business?
Yeah, so my junior year in college was 2020, and most people know what happened in 2020, but something they don't know is Boston University, where I played, we actually made March Madness. And so it was the one year that it got canceled, which was, it's still a tragedy. It stinks. It was like one of my last basketball goals in my career, but it also is kind of a blessing in disguise looking back because it made me sit back and go, wait a second here. Like basketball does stop at some point, whether you play professionally, whether you play in college or high school, like it always is going to stop at some point. And I realized I still love sports and I love business. And I'd started a few small side hustles in college and in high school. And, some people in my family and some of my mentors all own their own business. And I was like, well, you can mix sports and you can mix business alongside that. And it's a huge industry. Most people don't realize that multi-trillion dollar industry, the sports industry. And so that's how I got started and, kind of went more the media route because when you're younger, that's a good way to kind of enter the space and show, subject matter expertise, which for me was through at the start, name, image, and likeness, and then athlete investing and took it from there and just keep adding more and more things, which has been cool.
Of course, what was that experience like getting to play for Boston University for the collegiate basketball program?
Oh, it was awesome. I had a great 4 years there, appreciative of the coaching staff, the athletic department, the academics, all my teachers, professors. It was a really good experience to play not only high level basketball at the Division 1 level at BU, but also the chance to get a top 40 in the world education and of course from school of business, finance, and real estate. And also to be in Boston, a great sports town, lived in Fenway in the summers. So, you know, uh, the Red Sox were playing at Fenway Park, just a few blocks down from where I live. So it was an incredible experience. And yeah, I'm thinking it's June 1st here today. Normally a couple years ago, I've been in Boston, just taking one class, doing a little basketball workout, and then just spending the day. And Boston summers are amazing. Winters are a little bit different of a story, but yeah, no, it was an awesome experience.
Of course, in 2018, what was that like getting started and starting your first business of collegiate athletes insight?
Yeah, so I started College Athlete Insight I believe after my freshman year in college. And I was just, I don't know, watching YouTube videos or messing around and just seeing like, wow, like people are making money online. And I was just like, I'm competitive and a lot of things I do. I was like, maybe I should try to do this. Maybe I should see if I can create something people would want to buy. And so I just kind of started putting out some of my insights and research about getting recruited to play a sport in college because I had made a lot of mistakes and I was like, I didn't really have anything. And then created an ebook around it and kept putting out content. And yeah, it was doing really well, selling a few thousand worth of books every month, learning how to do affiliate money, advertising, like that sort of thing. And it's still surprisingly, the books still sell every now and then, which is pretty cool. So a little bit of passive income here and there from work done 5, 6 years ago. But technically, this is funny. I can say it now. Technically, it was kind of illegal to do in under NCAA guidelines at the time because NIL, name, image, and likeness, which allows college athletes to get paid now, wasn't like approved. So I actually at one point someone found out and I had to go to the admissions office and give the whole spiel and say, oh, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, I'll shut it down, all this stuff. But it was kind of crazy even to think a few years ago you couldn't make money as a college athlete, even if it was your own business because you have your name on there and stuff, and the school is wild.
Of course, what was college insight? Athlete Insight about?
So it's really about just helping kids get recruited to play in college and helping the parents. And it was an ebook, a website, did helped a few people be like, hey, would you consult and help us, give us greater insights? And so yeah, it was at its core really just a website, advertising model, ebook model that helped youth athletes and their parents figure out how to navigate the college recruiting process.
Of course, after your experience of getting to start up that business, what was that like getting invested in some of the sports businesses?
Yeah, it was awesome. So getting into sports business, I first started at a startup called Air and helped take the product from zero to 150,000 users. Really learned about the ins and outs of building a business from scratch. But I always was like, I met some consultants that worked for our business there and saw that they got to work with like 5 companies. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'd like to work and do different things and see, a lot of new ideas and meet a lot of new people in multiple. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump and start my own. So I started Profluence, which has evolved over the last couple of years and really just started with Twitter and then added LinkedIn and then newsletter, then podcasts, and then more like a in-depth website with everything, and then adding resources and databases and then had the chance to see a lot of cool companies and use some of the consulting money to write some checks into some of the companies I found interesting. And yeah, sports is an exciting time. I think the industry and especially sports technology has a lot of room to grow.
Of course, what was that experience like becoming an investor in companies like Playbook?
Yeah, there's Playbook's a super fascinating company because I had, coming from that background of, people think, oh, you're a basketball player, and that's true, but you're also like kind of in the fitness niche a little bit when you're going through because you're always learning how can I maximize my body, jump higher, run faster, get stronger. And Playbook is basically enables you to get training from your phone to some of these top fitness people in the world. And I always found that intriguing to be able to go on there and see people that have unique insights of nutrition and diet and sleep and all this. And they had built a really cool business and looked behind the numbers, talked to people that use it both as a creator and as a subscriber. And I was like, this is a good company. I'm not going to pass up. I'm going to invest in it.
Of course, after investing in some of the sports companies, what was that experience like getting started in building your own sports company?
Yeah, it was awesome. Now, building a company versus investing in one is completely different. And I think that's what gives me great insights and unique into it because I'm building my own business while also talking to other people building their own. And so I learn things for myself. They hopefully learn things from me. And my whole thing is like collaboration and always trying to give and you'll get the fruits of your labor over time. Be patient and grateful for where you've gotten and the people you get to meet. And it's really cool for me. But building versus investing in a company are two different things, but they tie in well together. If you know how to build a company, usually you have a better chance of investing in the right companies. And then once you learn how to invest in companies, you start to see which ones do well, which helps you then go and be able to build a better company. And since I'm kind of sitting in the middle of doing both, it's a good spot to be in.
Of course, what is Profluence Sports and what services do you offer?
So Profluence Sports at its core is a multimedia platform for this sports business, sports tech kind of niche, right? So we cover whether it's athlete investing, name, image, and likeness, whether it's just, wearables or, technologies like a Top Golf, like interesting things in the sports business world, right? So we do the podcast, newsletter, articles, all that kind of stuff. Also, we have like a bunch of resources on the website to help people, whether it's hey, you want to get your company funded? Here's all the venture capital firms, or here's all the athletes that have invested in companies, right? And then out of that, we've built a consulting arm that works with early stage sports startups, helping them with like business development and introducing them to the right people, helping them with crafting their own like marketing and media message and content arms. And also with there's a bunch, every client is a little bit unique. So it's been cool to work with companies like pickleball that are exploding, some in there, and then also companies from India or in cricket where completely new to me, where I get to learn a whole new sport, a whole new region. And then just, typical standard ones like sports media or sports data analytics companies. So that's what it's at its core. It's a media and consulting company, Profluence.
Of course, what has that experience been like, obviously working with those collegiate athletes in the NIL deals?
Yeah, the NIL space is super interesting, and it's a great it's a great thing that's happened to athletics, right? It's been way too long since college athletes have not been able to get paid. And you see like these conferences and leagues and teams make so much money off the backs of college athletes, specifically football and basketball. And then even to see women athletes now get huge deals and grow those sports has been awesome. But also my brother, Dan, is playing at Binghamton University, D1 in the American East, one of their best players. And it's been cool to help him along his journey and say, hey, look, here's how you can grow a TikTok, and here's how you can go and sell to brands, and here's how you can market yourself, and here, make a little bit of money on top of your athletic scholarship. So it's been really cool, and I'm excited to see where it all leads over the next 5-10 years. I think it ultimately leads to college athletes getting more formally paid.
Can you talk about, of course, starting up your podcast, Petcash Sports?
Yeah, so the podcast was just another branch of Profluence, right? And I put it under my name because I think personal branding is important, but also to keep it still attached sort of to the brand of Profluence is equally important. And it's been great. Had, a bunch of, we kind of sit at the intersection. I always say I'm interviewing the smartest people in sports, whether that's professional athletes, whether that's the founders, executives, or investors kind of in this ecosystem. So I've had founders or CEOs of companies that are worth billions of dollars in sports. I've had current pro athletes that have invested in tons of companies and made hundreds of millions in the NBA or NFL, and just a lot of really interesting guests building unique companies. And it's always fun to just sit and have a conversation like this and explore their mind and what they're thinking and why they built what they build and why they do what they do. And, just make them a part of my network a lot of the times too. And build the relationship beyond just a podcast has been the most enjoyable part of actually running a podcast.
Of course, what topics do you cover in your Petcash Pro?
Yeah, so cover a bunch of different things. We kind of labeled as the business of athletes, NIL, and sports. NIL kind of fits within there, but that's what I covered heavily on just because it was so new. Business of athletes fascinates me because athletes are now investing in companies, buying teams, doing tons of interesting stuff. So always love to stay at the forefront of that. It's what I built a lot of my brand around. And then just like I said, sports in general, sports business, sports technology has been a huge piece to the puzzle as well.
Who are some of your previous guests that you've had on your podcast?
Yeah, so I've had CJ Watson, who played in the NBA. We've had Thaddeus Young. We've had Sean Clifford and Ben DiNucci, who are quarterbacks in the NFL. Malika Underwood, CEO of One Team Partners, which is a multi-billion-dollar company in sports. We've had Pete Franzilis from Teen Snap. We've had a bunch of other guests coming on soon, like Jimmer Fredette and Mario Götze, and big time founders at companies. And yeah, it's been exciting, and I know I called out a few certain names, but I also only talk to people I find interesting or want to and kind of fit in that criteria. So I've had 50 guests so far, which is incredible. I'm so happy to get to that number, and I do 2 a week. And every person has been super interesting in their own unique way, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And on the next 50 and where we're at in 100, I'm sure it'll be 50 more incredible guests, and then we'll start getting people back on as cool developments happen.
Of course, what is that experience like getting those guests on to share about their story?
Yeah, so honestly, I mean, that's one of the things that is the toughest part about a podcast is not actually recording the podcast and having a conversation. That's the easy, fun part, but it's doing the research before. It's coming up with like outline. I don't really come up with questions. I do more bullet points and let the conversations flow. And then it's, getting on LinkedIn or emailing and setting up dates and times and scheduling it, and then the software, and then sending it to editors for audio. And so there's a lot that goes into a podcast. But, I love the conversation so much. And I love to be able to give other people insights into conversations maybe they can't have with certain people. And it's fun, and it's all worth it to do all those other things for it.
Of course, what has that experience been like, obviously, with NIL being so popular, having guests like Michael Raymond from Raymond Representation come on to talk about NIL and stuff.
Yeah, Mike's a great guest. He's 25, I believe, one of the young and up and comers. We're the same age, and he's building a fascinating NIL agency business, right? It's a whole new space, and now these agents or influencers need people to help them get brand deals, help them market, help them get other opportunities, do speaking engagements, autographs. And Michael, we had a great podcast and been able to build a good relationship after and talk about other stuff and help each other in certain ways. And it was great having his perspective of how he built his business, because there's a lot of grunt work and hard work that went into it, and to where it is today. And he's really thriving, and I'm excited to see where it goes next. So it's awesome to talk to high performers like Michael and learn more and share it with everyone else to hear from them. And then also those conversations behind the not with the record button on are great as well.
Of course, what has that balance been like having your business Profluence Sports and Petcash Sports intertwingle into one?
Yeah, it's been great. I think there's an influence kind of shaping social media right now where it's like this personal brand is really important, where people trust people more than people. So to have my name kind of attached with the brand is important, but it's also the risk of it, right? And I'm fine to do that. And I see a lot of people hide behind brands, or they get hired by a company, then they feel they can do certain things because they're hiding behind something. And for me, it's all, it's the same. And um, eventually over time, I think we'll be able to grow Profluence to a point where we get other people to have their names attached to it as well. And I'm excited for that day. But for now, I think it's been important to say, hey, there's a brand here, but also there's me here as well. And I'm one of those people that have built it up to what it is.
Of course, what are some of your future plans in both the Profluence Sports and your Petcash podcasts?
Yeah, we'll start with the podcast. So podcast, continuing having very fascinating conversations, getting interesting guests on, and just giving value to the space and allowing entrepreneurs or interesting people to share their stories and get the word out and get that extra publicity and whatever, and use my channels to do that, which I view as important. So I'm going to continue doing that on the media and consulting side, just continuing to pump out good content, bringing in other interesting people, and just looking at the space differently than others. And like I said, it all comes down to adding value and giving people the information they need that maybe is hard to find otherwise, that can help them make better decisions, help them grow their business. And that's kind of the business that I'm in, right? Helping others shine their message brighter, helping others, whether I'm building their company actually or just having them on the podcast or featuring them in a newsletter to showcase what they're doing. So yeah, there's a ton of other projects behind the scenes that we're going to continue working on. I look forward to those as well, but trying to take it day by day and enjoy the journey, right? Because that's what it's about, not so much the destinations.
What are some of the things that you learn now that you didn't know before you got started?
So many. We could be here for a long time talking about those things. But one of the things for me that I didn't know per se was just like how much goes into things that might look simple on the outside, right? So for some people, they see a huge podcast, and I'm just going to throw one out there, like a Joe Rogan, right? And you think, oh, it's so easy and all. But he's been doing that for 10 years, having guests on for a long time. And then there's the audio and the video, and then there's selling ads and sponsors. And so what looks like a simple conversation that you pull up on Spotify or Apple on your phone is actually a lot that goes into it. And to me, it's always taking things and trying to make them simple, because once they become simple, it makes it harder to replicate. And then also shining light to help other people try to get in the same positions as well. Because I do believe, and I'm not always perfect on this, but I believe the pie is big enough for everyone to succeed in their own little ways. And that's also tying it back to a previous question, why I think it's important to have your personal brand attached to your actual business brand.
Or so what advice would you give those people that are looking to start their own sports business in sports investments?
Yeah, I would say, you got to be passionate about it, right? If you're not, if you just like sports, you're more a fan, it's going to be tough. Like for me, I like sports, but I'm not sitting there watching all day. That's not the business I'm in. I'm in the business of sports business, which means what's actually going on behind the scenes and what people are doing off the court or off the field, right? and the companies that make it possible for a game to be held, or for a game to be streamed across the world, or for a league to grow. And so you got to look at it from a different angle. And ultimately, it comes down to sports is really big, but also it's small in the sense that, a lot of people know a lot of people, and you know of people, or are aware of them. And so your reputation is what matters the most. And if you're passionate, you'll figure it out, right? I had no clue coming out of college how I wanted to do this, why I wanted to do this, but I jumped in, and day by day figured it out, and I still got a lot to figure out. But it's fun, and I'm enjoying it, and that's what makes it worthwhile.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to start their own sports podcast and interview sports business owners?
Yeah, I think the answer would be similar to the last question of saying you got to be passionate about it, and you got to start somewhere, right? So for me, I was pumping out content on Twitter, which I now have 80,000 followers on, for 2 years before I even thought about a podcast. I was, doing newsletters for a year before I even started doing podcasts. So for anyone starting, it's going to be hard just to jump in and have a podcast, because it's like, who's listening, right? So I now have built-in distribution where I can post things on Twitter, or post things on LinkedIn, or in my newsletter. And that makes, them coming on a podcast more valuable. So I would say build up something, or have a very, very unique niche around it to get people on.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Andrew Petcash. That's Andrew, and then Petcash is Pet and Cash put together on all the social media platforms. And there's links within all those social media platforms to my other stuff, but you can also check out profluence.com, which has everything all in one place, which is great. Tons of great stuff there. And then also the Petcash pod on Spotify or Apple for the podcast. And yeah, keep it simple. Just look me up, Andrew Petcash, profluence.com, and everything's there. And I appreciate, checking it out, and hopefully people find some of it interesting and insightful.
Thank you again, Andrew Petcash, for your interview, and best luck in your future with the Pro Sports Pod.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment,
You've been
and
watching
subscribe.
Brandon
Thank you again,
Sports
Andrew
Talk.
Petcash, for your interview, and
Please
best luck in your
feel
future.
free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.